Hello, and welcome to the Scope of Things podcast, a no-nonsense look at the promise and problems of clinical research based on a sweep of the latest news and emerging trends in the field and what I think is worthy of your 30 or so minutes of time. I'm Deborah Borfitz, senior science writer for Clinical Research News, which means I spend a lot of time with my ear to the ground on your behalf and a lot of hours every week speaking to top experts from around the world. Please consider making this your trusted go-to channel for staying current on things that matter, whether they give us hope or cause for pause. In another 5 minutes or so, I'll be talking to Wes Michael, president and founder of private market research company Rare Patient Voice, about its efforts and successes in ensuring the opinions and experiences of rare disease patients and their family caregivers are being heard. But first, the latest news, including an AI-powered trial screening tool that outperforms research staff, a strategy report on ways to boost cancer vaccine work, the continued absence of pregnant women in clinical trials, a program bringing studies directly to people in rural Utah, and efforts to integrate clinical trials into routine patient care in medically underserved areas of Oklahoma. Mass General Brigham researchers found a generative AI clinical trial screening tool known as Rectifier was significantly more efficient than research staff manually reviewing patients' charts to determine if they met the eligibility criteria for a randomized prospective heart failure trial. For the AI arm, Rectifier made its eligibility determinations based on an assessment of information in patients' electronic health records, after which study staff conducted a quick review of the flagged patient charts. AI helped screen 458 eligible patients compared to 284 by study staff working on their own over the same period, and nearly twice as many patients in the AI group ultimately enrolled in the trial than in the manual group. Additionally, the researchers found no significant differences in terms of the race, gender, and ethnicity of patients enrolled via the two methods. More than 24 oncology researchers in the UK have proposed a national thought leadership strategy report that aims to boost cancer vaccine work. The central challenge, they say, will be harnessing the country's healthcare system to facilitate efficient trials. Their 4 key recommendations are to leverage COVID-19 vaccine success, create shared missions between stakeholder groups, modernize trials infrastructure with seamless integration of genomic data across different platforms and institutions, and put more effort into fostering effective public awareness of the potential opportunities and limitations of cancer vaccine technology. Pregnant women are regularly excluded from clinical drug trials that test for safety, raising concerns about the effectiveness of these medications for mothers and their children, according to researchers from the Brown University School of Public Health. An analysis of 90,860 drug trials involving women of childbearing age over the past 15 years found that fewer than 1% included pregnant participants, despite calls for their greater involvement. The trials that included pregnant women focused primarily on pregnancy-related conditions, labor, and prevention of preterm labor, and not chronic conditions such as diabetes and asthma. Only since 1993 has the U.S. Food and Drug Administration required that pharmaceutical companies include women in their studies unless there's a justification to exclude them. The Huntsman Cancer Institute will be bringing specialized cancer care and clinical trials directly to patients in 3 rural and frontier counties in Utah, who are 10% more likely to die from the disease than their urban counterparts. The move is an expansion of an existing Huntsman at Home program that operates through partnerships with local home health agencies and hospitals. The new 5-year research project is being funded by the Paradigm program of the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, one of the main components of which is a mobile vehicle that will be outfitted with advanced and innovative testing, imaging, and treatment capabilities. A clinical effectiveness study will be conducted to monitor care outcomes, patient and community satisfaction, and cost effectiveness. The University of Oklahoma, for its part, will be integrating clinical trials funded by the National Institutes of Health into routine patient care in medically underserved areas of the state. The initiative is part of an NIH pilot program known as Communities Advancing Research Equity for Health that was launched last year with 3 network research hubs and now also includes 4 OU Health Sciences faculty members as principal investigators. The first step for OU Health Sciences is joining an existing trial on improving functional outcomes for older adults who have been treated for cancer. The overarching goal is to build out a national research infrastructure that can accommodate primary care research studies by assisting individual clinics with study design, obtaining data in a standardized way from their electronic health record, and communicating with eligible patients. Ultimately, this could speed up the adoption of evidence-based guidelines. Currently, it takes an average of 17 years for the results of clinical trials to be implemented into primary care practices. Yikes. Links to the various articles, commentaries, studies, and the news releases covered in this month's news segment can be found in the show notes. It is now time to bring to the mic Wes Michael to talk about how rare patient voice is connecting people undertaking research studies with participants eager to share their insights and, importantly, getting paid to do so. Welcome to the show, Wes.
Hey, great to be here, Deb.
I have to say, when I first heard of Rare Patient Voice, I assumed it was a patient advocacy group trying to ensure the concerns of rare disease patients were being addressed in clinical trials. But after doing a little reading, I quickly realized that the model is a bit different than that in a few key respects. One, it transparently compensates patients for providing their insights, and 2, it doesn't typically work directly with clinical trial sponsors like a patient advocacy group might. Do I have that right?
Yeah, we kind of came at this from a different angle. Okay. My background was more in the market research than in the clinical research, and as we began, most of our work was there, and it's only more recently that we've spread our wings into the clinical world. But coming from the market research world, it's like, hey, surveys, interviews, learning what people think. And we were connecting patients and caregivers to researchers who in turn work for life sciences companies. So there's a lot of levels involved in this, in this world. But to make sure they knew they could get the patient's point of view, not just physicians or researchers' points of view.
Okay. And how many other patient voice organizations are out there, and how do you sort of differ from them?
Yeah, it's funny. From the market research standpoint, we're pretty unique. People will come to us and oh my goodness, we've been looking for patients with a certain condition forever, and it's like, no, that's all we do. We found folks that are eager to take part, and as you noted, we happy to compensate them for their time, and so. Other firms that say they have patients, they often come to us for the patients.
Interesting.
We're happy either way. But it's a unique world out there.
And these are patients in the U.S. or beyond the U.S. or a little of both?
Yeah, we started in the U.S., and that's by far our largest and strongest. We have 130,000 plus patients and caregivers in the U.S., but we've expanded a few years ago into the big 5 countries in Europe. And also in some other English-speaking, Canada, Australia, New Zealand as well. Okay,
well, that's pretty broad. So Rare Patient Voice has been around for like more than 10 years now. So let's back up for a minute to tell me the story of how this company came into being. Like, what were you doing before, and why did you feel the need to take this approach in supporting the research community?
Yeah, certainly it wasn't anything all pre-planned on my part. I had a consumer background. I was working at General Mills and McCormick, Wheaties and Kicks and spices.
And so much like drugs, right?
Yeah, exciting processed food. Now I didn't realize it was the bad guy. Now we know processed food is the bad guy. But anyway, but it was very exciting moving into the healthcare in the 90s, because that's when in the U.S. the direct-to-consumer became a legal thing. Before that, companies would market by sending their sales rep into the physician's office one-on-one. And then all of a sudden they were able to go to the patients directly through TV and all other sorts of media. And so I got involved there working with companies that knew nothing about knew everything about a physician, but knew nothing about patients and TV. And one of the first things we did was a company came to us in the rare disease of hemophilia space. Mm-hmm. And they said, look, there's very few of these folks, but they're very valuable to us. we really want to get into their heads, learn what we can do. It's not just about our treatment. What can we do? Services, how can we get them loyal? Marketing. How can we market to them? Can you develop a group of these folks that we can do various surveys, interviews, really learn from them? And so the company I was working with at the time, we went to the National Hemophilia Foundation conference, had our table and had our clipboards, and it was wonderful. People signed up, and we had a good group of patients and caregivers, and they did lots of research to really understand their needs and their wants and their attitudes and their opinions. And that was all well and good. It could have ended there. Every year we'd go back to the conference and get more folks. But one year I went back to that conference, and a different company in the same space came up to me and said, "Hey, I hear you have this panel of hemophilia folks. Can we access?" Well, the answer was no, right? A different client A pays for it, client B can't have it. But that gave me an idea. It's like, why not create a group that's not beholden to just one company?
Yeah.
And so that was the spark. I had that idea in my head for many years, and I finally took action on it 12 years ago now, 2013. And guess what I did? The first thing I did, I went to the hemophilia conference because I knew it. I'd been involved in that. I knew there was a demand, and I had done it, and it had worked. And so we started there. And my other assumption was that we'd focus on the rare disease, because if you can find Cheerio eaters, you could find type 2 diabetes patients. Well, that was a mistake, because it turns out unfortunately, most people don't have one condition. If you have one thing, you have other things. And so people would say, for example, I have hemophilia, but you also want to know about my asthma. And so I'm like, I don't know. But then all of a sudden clients said, "Hey, do you have asthma patients? Do you have anxiety? Do you have?" And so I said, okay, I was wrong to focus exclusively on rare. And so we added a tagline, also non-rare. It's like rare and non-rare. So it's like every and any condition. Though the focus has been more on the harder to find, as you can imagine, harder to find folks for all sorts of researchers that are looking for them.
That's interesting. So the name kind of still makes sense in a way, even though they're not all rare patients. It's still rare to sometimes hear the voice of patients, period. So
right. And everybody is unique, right, in their own way. So
right.
I like to say a lot of the conditions are medium rare. So it's technically speaking, like MS or lupus in the US technically doesn't meet the definition of rare, but it's not mainstream either.
Right.
We do a lot of work in that all across that spectrum, from rare to medium rare.
Are you enjoying the conversation? We'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to the podcast and give us a rating. It helps other people find and join the conversation. If you've got speaker or topic ideas, we'd love to hear those too. You can send them in a podcast review.
Okay. So in what ways are clinical trial sponsors benefiting from the input of patients, whoever, whatever they might have, particularly those with rare diseases, I suppose, or medium rare diseases, either directly or downstream? And what are the big sort of blind spots, if you will, where this sort of input is being sought?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because a lot of researchers obviously know everything there is to know about the science of the disease, but they really need to hear from the patient's point of view. And a couple of examples I've heard as I've gone out to patient events and such is somebody setting up a trial might have a couple of options. They might say, "Hey, we could have them come in more often, but for a shorter period of time, like every other week for a half an hour, or maybe it's every 6 weeks for 3 hours." And they were thinking, "Oh, well, people don't want long visits." Well, when they talk to patients says, no. If I'm going to take the trouble to go in, whether it's a long distance or even within an hour, I'd rather go less often and spend more time there. So it's like a simple question like that. Find out what works better for the patients.
Right.
That can save a lot of time and trouble. And another one that really stuck with me, I was at a conference that had both patients and the researchers for lung disease. I think it was IPF, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. But the researchers were there. "Hey, look, we're on track. We're going to solve this. We're going to save your lives." And the patient said, "Thank you. I appreciate it. But what can you do for my cough? The cough is making my life miserable." And they said, "Well, that's not going to kill you." And they said, "But I don't even want to live if you can't fix the cough." So the word got through that, quality of life was just as important to these people. So it's so important for the researchers to hear what's important to the patients rather than just make assumptions about it.
Right. And the caregivers. Give me an example of what you're learning from
Yeah.
caregivers. What are you learning where the blind spots are there?
Wow. I mean, we've done studies ourselves with caregivers just to learn more about their lives, and they have such a burden. We were presenting to a bunch of caregivers, and I said, "You guys all know this, but I'll tell you what you already know, but I'll put some statistics behind it." But how many tasks they have to perform across a whole variety of areas, how much time it takes, how much help they could really use if it were at all possible, how it's changed their lives. People, and it's often the mom who gives up a career to take care of when it's a child, 24/7, and the economics effects that has on a family. It's just amazing the impact that has had, and the help that could be used to help people through all this. It's just amazing what people have to put up with for a loved one. I mean, they'll do anything for their loved one. And it's just turn their lives upside down.
Does this imply that sponsors might be more inclined, give that information, to provide more support financially or otherwise? I don't know, compensation-wise, transportation-wise, who knows how, to help caregivers?
And everything. I heard somebody tell me, they were going every month to another city, and they had other kids. So, they go with the other kids in tow to go to the clinical trial site. And it wasn't until they've done it for several years that somebody else that was in trial said, "Did you know there was I forget what it was, a Walmart or a Target, like within a mile?" They said, "If I'd only known that, it would have made my life so much better." Simple, practical things like that.
Interesting.
Because people are trying to live a normal life.
Yeah.
And we don't always think of them that way. We think of them as subjects of a disease, and we're going to cure it. And they love that, and they want to support it. But they've got other kids that they've got to manage in the meantime.
Right. That's a great example.
Anything that can help them. And people love to get information. What are you finding out? What are you learning? I know that it's not always possible to reveal all this, but people love to hear more about what's the cause. Why are we doing the research? What do we hope to find? And they love to find out the result. They really want to hear all that. They don't want to be kept in the dark.
Yep. This aligns with what I've been hearing about for years. So you're just bringing it home here. So what have been sort of the big lessons learned over the years from the shared experiences of rare, medium rare, whatever disease patients, both for you and the clients of Rare Patient Voice? I mean, have the signals from patients in any sense been changing over time with the times?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, what I've seen is it would surprise me somewhat, but how eager people are to share their story, to help. They'll say, and it's not about the money. They'll say, "Hey, if I can help others," and the money's nice, but money's not the first thing people mention.
Interesting.
If it can help, and so often it's like, and it may not even help me, but if it can help those coming after. Because they realize this is a long-term. You had a comment in your news about it taking often 17 years to get the impact from some of these studies. Like, oh my God! But they realize sometimes it can take a long time, and it may not be. They may not be the beneficiary or their loved one. It may have to be someone else. So it's amazing how dedicated, how motivated people are to do that. I've noticed over the years there's a lot more understanding of research. When we first do it, I don't understand it. You people actually ask me questions, and it's valuable to them. Now I call them more survey savvy. Like, oh yeah, I've done these. I like to do this. I like to share my information. So people have learned a bit more about it, and that's a good sign in that there's been a lot more because there's been so much advance in treating so many more conditions that there has been more research. Another thing that surprised me was that people would come to us and say, "Hey, we want to talk to stage 4 cancer patients." And my first thought would be, they probably don't have a lot of time left. Do they really want to spend their time doing an interview or a survey? But I was wrong. I mean, at least the people that I talk to, people are like, "No, if I can help others, count me in." I mean, they're eager to help. So it's just amazing, again, what people want to do to help others with that condition that they've been suffering from.
Right. Make my life count. That makes a lot of sense, actually, to some people I do know that are in later stages of cancer and how they feel. That definitely aligns with that way of thinking. So how do patients find you and join the Rare Patient Voice community? And also, how often are they contributing their insights or want to?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. I mentioned going to the hemophilia. We still go to patient events. I love, there'll be walks or conferences. I was just at a local Alzheimer's event not long ago, and we have a whole team that goes to these events. It's so great to see people in person and meet with them. And a lot of folks will see there and say, "Oh, I'm a member. I love it." So it's great to do that too.
Yeah.
And we have a wonderful team of what we call referral partners, over 5,000 now. And they might be a member of an advocacy group. They might be in a foundation. They might just be, some people are well connected.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, I went to a walk in Albuquerque for MS, and I would go to these walks on weekends, and I'd bring one of my kids because, the walk would be in the morning, and then we could do touristy things for the rest of the weekend. And a woman came up to me and she said, I get it. I'm well connected in this area. Well, she knew people all over the country with MS. She had her own closed Facebook page. So people know other people. And what we found there, it's terrific, because it's kind of like electronic word of mouth, because what better than somebody else say, "Hey, I've done a study and they treated me well and I got paid. Oh, how do I do it too?" Rather than getting some like stalkerish email telling you about it.
Right.
It really helped out. Now, some people will like some listening to this podcast might just go to our website and sign up, and we love that too. We try to answer as many questions as we can on the website, but we'll chat. If it hasn't come from somebody we know, we'll check it out more thoroughly. It's like, well, who are they? What do they say? What medications? And we'll call people up to double check. It's nothing like talking to somebody to verify that they're authentic and they are who they say they are.
Yeah. Is there any sort of most wanted patients or recruitment targets that patient types you really want to hear from, or whose input is sought?
It's so many different things. I mean, we've got 1,500 different conditions, diseases covered with our folks on our panel. And I'm just looking, if I just look at the ones from the last couple days where we've started studies, myelofibrosis, hypoparathyroidism, sickle cell, hereditary angioedema, schizophrenia, prostate cancer, Parkinson's, thyroiditis. So people always say, "What are the top 10?" I'm like, I have to give you the top 50 because it's so many.
Okay.
So many. And I started with hemophilia. There's still every week there's another hemophilia study, it seems like. So it's like I can't rule out anything. And that's good news, right? Because nobody's doing this for fun. It means somebody's doing something. They're working on some kind of a treatment.
Right.
So I love it. There's everything is, I don't know if it's advancing us an inch or a mile, but at least we've got to be moving, So.
Yeah. Can you throw a stat at me though, in terms, I don't know, projects completed, trials you've been involved in over the years or something? Just give me something.
Yeah, exactly. So we're proud. Over the last year, we completed our 10,000th project.
Holy, wow.
I know. It's like, thank God it's not just me doing it. We've got a wonderful team doing all that. And we've compensated patients. We pay patients now at the rate of $120 per hour of their time.
That's amazing.
Clinical trials are a little different. This is when they're doing a survey or an interview. Clinical trials, there's a lot of different rules and regs and how you can compensate. But anyway, we've compensated people $15 million.
Wow.
So it's, and people, as I say, it's not the first thing people mention, but especially around the holidays, people say, "Oh, thank goodness you made it possible for us to give some more gifts." Because $100 here or there. And think about it, so many of these people are in financial straits because they've given up careers. They may be on disability. $20 here or there can really, really help them out.
It's just it acknowledges their contribution just in general, just as a sign of that respect, really, for their time.
You know what? I say that people will pay more attention to what they've paid for. If they volunteered and gave it, the people on the other end in the life science industry, they'd be a little less, "Oh, well, here's what they told us." But it's like, no, we've paid these people. Let's pay attention to what they've said. It puts a value. The value to their opinion. And I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, I want to close by acknowledging that Rare Disease Day just passed on February 28th. Did the Rare Patient Voice community celebrate in some way? Were there any special festivities to mark the occasion? What usually happens anyway?
Yeah, a lot of different things. First of all, my colleague Pam and I were fortunate. We're in the Baltimore, Washington area, and we always go. There's a Rare Disease Day at the NIH in Bethesda.
Huh.
And so many people come there, and you see people from all different advocacy groups and disease areas and researchers and such. So that's one thing we do. And as a group, our team does a lot of things. We have a group going out. They go on social media. They have Facebook live streaming, if I've got that right.
Yeah.
And really, it's a great time to remind everybody about the importance of rare diseases and the raising awareness for everyone.
So tell me a bit about you. You got a slogan you use, more than you can imagine. You still using that? Tell me what that means.
That's the slogan for Rare Disease Day.
Okay.
And to me, I love that in a couple different ways. One, there's more diseases than you can imagine. They used to say 7,000 rare. Now some people are quoting 10,000 rare diseases. And I think I've heard of them all because I'm always working. And there's always a new one. Somebody just came up to me, well, I'm one of 5 people with this rare. It's like, oh my God. So there's more than you can imagine. But even more than that, kind of I was alluding to when I talk to caregivers, but with patients, what people are going through is more than you can imagine. Again, their life has been turned upside down. And what you won't do for your health or for your loved ones, even more so for your loved ones. And it's the burden, the thoughts, and just the energy that people put into it, the fighting spirit that I see is more than you can imagine. So I love that they've come up with that.
Absolutely. Well, there seems to be no better time than now to really listen to the voice of patients and their caregivers, something the clinical trials industry has been trying to figure out how best to do seemingly for many, many years now. Thanks so much, Wes, for being on today's show and helping to bring to light the real world impact of rare and medium rare diseases on their lives at scale, and all that Rare Patient Voice is doing to bring patients respect, visibility, and continued hope for better treatments and cures. May the next 10 years be as fruitful as the last 10 have been.
Yes, here. There's nothing better than to get the word out and remind people that there is help out there, that they can share their voice, that they can make a difference.
Yes, indeed. Thanks again. And as always, a big thank you to everyone out there for listening in. If you're not subscribed to this podcast yet, please consider going to Apple Podcasts and doing so right now so you don't miss your monthly dose of news and perspectives you'll be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. And if you're up for it, I'd also be so very grateful if you'd leave a rating and review while you're there. For more straight talk on studies involving humans, visit clinicalresearchnewsonline.com. And if you're a clinical research professional, we hope also to see you at our next SCOPE conference, where we make things happen. Bye for now.